Nepal is one of the most beautiful countries in the world. It lies in the heart of Asia continent. The beauty of Nepal is beyond description. No matter how far we describe her, doesn't suffice. The Almighty has thoughtfully and deliberately created her. She looks ever smiling. She lies on the tender lap of the Himalayas which spontaneously flow their powerful feelings. They consider this piece of heaven a dreamland. Nepal is a country in South Asia. It is located mainly in the Himalayas, but also includes parts of the Indo-Gangetic Plain. Nepal is small and lies between the two big countries, China and India. It is nearly 500 miles from east to west and 100 miles north to south. Nepal is known as a Himalayan country in the world. It is also said a landlocked country in the Himalayas. It was cut off from the rest of the world until the early 1950s, when a palace revolution and the subsequent overthrow of the autocratic Rana dynasty marked the beginning of Nepal's emergence into the modern world. It is the 49th largest country by population and 93rd largest country by area. It is landlocked, and borders China in the north and India in the south, east and west, while Bangladesh is located within only 27 kilometers, 17 miles, of its southeastern tip, and Bhutan is separated from it by the Indian state of Sikkim. Nepal has a diverse geography, including fertile plains, subalpine forested hills, and 8 of the world's 10 tallest mountains, including Mount Everest, the highest point on Earth. Kathmandu is the capital and the largest city. Nepal is a multi-ethnic country with Nepali as the official language. Nepal is one of the democratic countries in the world. It was famous for peace in the past, whereas nowadays it is famous for revolution and caprice. Nepal has made a long glorious history from the beginning of civilization. Many tourists are attracted by its glory and attractions. The Nepalese are known as brave across the world. Nepal has remained independent in the history. Even the Britishers were unable to colonize it. In the mid-18th century, Prithvi Narayan Shah, a Gorkha king, set out to put together what would become present-day Nepal. He embarked on his mission by securing the neutrality of the bordering mountain kingdoms. After several bloody battles and sieges, notably the Battle of Kirtipur, he managed to conquer the Kathmandu Valley in 1769. The Gorkha control reached its height when the North Indian territories of the Kumaon and Garhwal kingdoms in the west to Sikkim in the east came under Nepalese control. A dispute with Tibet over the control of mountain passes and inner Tingri valleys of Tibet forced the Qing Emperor of China to start the Sino-Nepali War, compelling the Nepali to retreat to their own borders in the north. Rivalry between the Kingdom of Nepal and the East India Company over the control of states bordering Nepal eventually led to the Anglo-Nepali War, 1815-16. At first, the British underestimated the Nepali and were soundly defeated until committing more military resources than they had anticipated needing. Thus began the reputation of Gurkhas as fierce and ruthless soldiers. The war ended in the Sugauli Treaty, under which Nepal ceded recently captured lands. Factionalism inside the royal family led to a period of instability. In 1846, a plot was discovered revealing that the reigning queen had planned to overthrow young Bahadur Kuwar, a fast-rising military leader. This led to the Court massacre. Armed clashes between military personnel and administrators loyal to the queen led to the execution of several hundred princes and chieftains around the country. Bir Singh Kunwar emerged victorious and founded the Rana dynasty, and came to be known as Young Bahadur Rana. The king was made a titular figure, and the post of prime minister was made powerful and hereditary. The Ranas were staunchly pro-British and assisted them during the Indian Rebellion of 1857, and later in both world wars. Some parts of the Tarai region were gifted to Nepal by the British as a friendly gesture because of her military help to sustain British control in India during the rebellion. In 1923, the United Kingdom and Nepal formally signed an agreement of friendship that superseded the Sugauli Treaty of 1816. Nepal claims that the river to the west of Kalapani as the main Kali River, hence it belongs to Nepal. The river borders the Nepalese district of Dachula in Sudur Paschim Pradesh province and the Indian district of Pithoragarh in Uttarakhand state. The Treaty of Sugauli signed by Nepal and British India on the 3rd of March 1816 locates the Kali River as Nepal's western boundary with India. Kalapani is a 372 square kilometer area at the China-Nepal-India tri-junction. India claims Kalapani as a part of Uttarakhand while Nepal depicts the area in its map. The border dispute flared up again recently after India released its new political map, following the reorganization of Jharkhand, showing the area as its own. According to the Sugauli Treaty signed between Nepal and British India in 1816, the Mahakali River that runs through the Kalapani area is the boundary between the two countries. However, British surveyors subsequently showed the origin of the river, which has many tributaries, at different places. While Nepal claims that the river west of the disputed territory is the main river and so Kalapani falls in its territory, India claims a different origin and includes the area in its territory. The Treaty of Sugauli of 1816 A.D. between the two sides in order to stop the Nepal-British war set the east-west boundary of Nepal. In some places, boundary disputes appear when the provision of this treaty formed about 200 years ago was not practically obeyed. This was contradicted by the fact when Nepal's terrain was placed on the political map of India drawn by the Survey of India. The map clearly shows the encroachment of 372 square kilometers area on the western border of Nepal. According to Article 5 of the Sugauli Treaty between Nepal and the East India Company, the Kali River is the western boundary of Nepal with India. According to a map drawn by the East India Company 10 years after the Sugauli Treaty, the river with the Limpiyadhura estuary is the Kali River. Strategically, Lipulekh Pass in Kalapani serves as an important vantage point for India to keep an eye on Chinese movements. Since 1962, Kalapani has been manned by the Indo-Tibetan Border Police. Nepal Supreme Court has sought the country's original map exchanged with India during the signing of the Sugauli Treaty, the one exchanged while signing a boundary treaty with India in 1960, the map published by the East India Company on February 1, 1827, and a separate map published by the British government in 1847. Kalapani is such an emotive issue for Nepal and its citizens that India's decision to expand trade with China through the Lipulekh Pass created a furore in Kathmandu, with the Nepal Parliament seeking to know from the government if the India-China agreement undermined Nepal's sovereignty. Six months after India unveiled its new political map placing Kalapani within its borders, Nepal on Wednesday unveiled its new political map by including the region within its territory. Padma Kumari Ayal, the Minister for Land Management, Cooperatives and Poverty Alleviation, unveiled the map. The new map showing Kalapani, Limpiyadhura and Lipulekh as Nepali territories was approved by the cabinet on Monday. The territories have been shown in Byas Rural Municipality in Dachula district of Sudur Paschim Province. With adding the disputed land that is currently occupied by India, the total area of Nepal has increased from 1,47,181 square kilometers to 1,47,516 square kilometers, according to officials. The map will come into use immediately, said Ayal. The areas including Gunji, Navi and Kuti near Kalapani, which had been left out in earlier maps, are also included in the new map. Minister Ayal said she hoped India will take Nepal's decision of publishing a new map in a positive way. The government move to publish a new political map was prompted by India's May 8 announcement that it had opened a road link via Lipulekh to Kailash Mansarovar in the Tibetan Autonomous Region. As protests erupted, Prime Minister K.P. Sharma Oli came under pressure from leaders of the ruling and opposition parties to act. The Oli government, which had sought a date for talks after the Kalapani controversy, on May 9 had issued a statement, objecting to India's opening of the road via Lipulekh. Delhi swiftly responded, saying the territory belonged to India. Then again, on May 11, it handed over a diplomatic note to Indian Ambassador Vinay Mohan Kwatra, making its position clear on Lipulekh. Oli on May 19 said in his parliament address that the map would be made public by May 20. The decision to include the territories inside the map of Nepal was made after India inaugurated a road link through Nepali territory, Oli said. The border dispute in the region, on the northwestern edge of Nepal, has been a perennial irritant in Nepal-India camaraderie. After Nepal released the new map, the Indian media has launched a planned attack against Nepal. The Government of India has urged the Government of Nepal to create an environment for dialogue by making public its view that the new map of Nepal is not acceptable to it. The Indian media, on the other hand, has been spreading exaggerated and unfactual propaganda about the new map of Nepal and the campaign to bring back the encroached territory. These are the 24 bases to prove that the territory up to Limpiyadhura belongs to Nepal. 1. The boundary agreement between Nepal and the East India Company of 1809 states that the eastern part of the Kali River belongs to Nepal. 2. The book Sketch of Gorkha by British Captain Woodbridge shows the eastern part of the Mahakali River in Nepal. 3. Agreement between Amar Singh Thapa and David Akhterloni on the 15th of May 1815 in Malong. Kali River is the border river, before that is Nepal. 4. In a letter sent by Lord Mario in June and August 1815, the Kali River was the border river. 5. A map prepared by a British hydrographer published on the 2nd of January 1816 shows the origin of Kali, Limpiyadhura. 6. According to the Sugauli Treaty of 1816, Limpiyadhura is the source of Mahakali. Before that, all the territory belonged to Nepal. 7. In 1817, when the East India Company heard the request of the villagers of Nabhi, Kuti and Gunji to settle in British India, it became clear that Nabhi, Kuti and Gunji were under Gorkha rule. A copy of the East India Company's letter to Bamsha and Ambassador Gardner, including the dealings with the Gorkhas in the eastern part of Kali, is preserved in the British Library. 8. In 1819, a map published by the East India Company Government Survey Office named the river that originated from Limpiyadhura and flowed as the Black River. 9. A map drawn by Captain J.D. Hewitt in 1826 shows the river flowing from Limpiyadhura as River Kali. 10. Map of 1827, Library of Congress, Washington, D.C. Limpiyadhura is the source of Kali. 11. In 1837, a hand map drawn by an Indian surveyor named J.B. Tassina shows Limpiyadhura, the birthplace of Kali. 12. A map signed by the then Deputy Surveyor General of the then East India Company of India and the Surveyor General of the United Kingdom in 1840 mentions the trilateral boundary of Limpiyadhura. Someone also wrote Lipulekh. 13. The Boundary Pillar Agreement of 1845 and the New Country Treaty of 1860 and the sketch map preserved in the British Museum show that Limpiyadhura is the source of Kali. 14. The first map drawn by the Indian Survey Department in October 1855 shows the origin of Kali as Limpiyadhura, but the Boundary River as a tributary of Lipulekh. 15. Map of 1857, British Museum Library, London show Mahakali at the mouth of the Limpiyadhura. 16. According to the maps exchanged in the supplementary treaties of 1850, 1856 and 1860, Limpiyadhura is the source of the Mahakali River in the western border of Darchula district. 17. Official maps of 1827 and 1856 published by the British Survey of India prove that the western border of Nepal extends to Limpiyadhura. 18. The Old Atlas of China, published in the Qing dynasty in 1903, mentions in Chinese language that the source of the Kali River is Limpiyadhura. The northeastern part of the river is Nepal. 19. The Boundary Treaty signed between Nepal and China on October 5, 1961 and the Boundary Protocol of 1979 deemed Nepal east of the Kali River and its border point. 20. In Nepal's first parliamentary election in 2015, people in and around Lipulekh were voters. 21. In 2018 BS, journalist Bhairav Rajal had conducted a census of Nabhi, Kuti, Gunji and other villages in the area east of Limpiyadhura. There was no Indian army presence at that time. Similarly, the team that went to demarcate the Nepal-China border in 2019 did not see the Indian army there. 22. The Indian map showing the river system released in 2007 includes Upper Kali to include Limpiyadhura. 23. Another map of river flows prepared by India shows that the source of Kali is Limpiyadhura. 24. In the map released by the Survey of India in 2017, Kali, which has the source of Limpiyadhura, is considered as the border river. These evidences are based on books, sayings and articles of Nepali experts. India had a war with China in 1962 AD known as Sino-Indian War. The Sino-Indian War, also known as the Indochina War and Sino-Indian border conflict, was a war between China and India that occurred in 1962. A disputed Himalayan border was the main cause of the war, but other issues also played a role. There had been a series of violent border skirmishes between the two countries after the 1959 Tibetan uprising, when India granted asylum to the Dalai Lama. India initiated a defensive forward policy from 1960 to hinder Chinese military logistics, in which it placed outposts along the border, including several north of the Makman Line, the eastern portion of the line of actual control proclaimed by Chinese Premier Zhou Enlai in 1959. Much of the fighting took place in harsh mountain conditions, entailing large-scale combat at altitudes of over 4,000 meters, 14,000 feet. The Sino-Indian War was also notable for the lack of deployment of naval and aerial assets by either China or India. Nepal, as a very good and helping neighbor nation, agreed to India when they asked Nepal government for help and to allow them stay at Limpiyadhura region and tackle with China and increase the defensive power. And the good Nepal government agreed and allowed the Indian troops to stay there, but later Indian claimed that region, saying they have been safeguarding that region since long time. India spat on the same plate they ate on.